Okay, we're back. We're rocking. Let's I wonder if I can get sound on this thing. I don't hear anything. It's okay without sound. Oh, there we go. Okay, so it's off center, unfortunately. I'll just bring it, I guess, out of full screen. Part of the challenge with streaming with a big monitor is this. It looks like I can't really zoom in. Oh, I kind of did a bit. Okay, so this is Eyes on Earth. This is a piece. This is actually, this is my first 3D piece that I've ever made, besides the donut, which I never, did anything with. It just sort of did as a tutorial. This is a second actual literal thing I made in 3D. And it's a pretty interesting piece. I'm just going to talk about it a little bit because it's going to really apply to what we're doing. And I think it is so symbolic to everything. I mean, literally everything that I think I am today as a 3D artist. So I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant. So this is a simulation of 3,000 plus satellites that are orbiting Earth. And what makes this piece really unique and I think really special is that it uses real actual data. So every satellite here is a simulation of its actual orbit. They are actual real satellites. So this is real data. And each one has a different meaning. The green are in geosynchronous, like 35,000 kilometers from Earth, which means like as they rotate, they don't actually appear to be moving from the ground. So when you point your satellite dish at your direct TV at a satellite, it works because it doesn't move. And the fact that it doesn't move is what makes it special, and that's why it's in that orbit. And there's a lot of them there. So you see these typically for communication, sometimes for like weather images. So you see like a big hurricane and stuff. You'll often get images from that. But that's the green ones, and then those little purple ones that are doing that little dance kind of in the middle ground. Those are GPS satellites. So they're in this kind of like figure 8 pattern, which gives them kind of like the maximum coverage. Is why you need 3 GPS satellites to kind of triangulate your position. And there are always sort of 3 available from any spot on Earth. I think any spot on Earth, maybe not the poles. And then as you go internal, you see a couple different ones. You see these like little tiny blue ones. Those are Starlink. So those are actually, there's like tons of those now, 3,000, I think, that are just orbiting Earth, providing internet. But it's like, I think by far the most satellites total out there. And then you see a yellow streak going around. And if you actually look really closely, it's actually going just beneath the Starlinks. And that's actually the International Space Station. So you can see as it kind of goes around, what makes this special is it's on an orbit where it gets about 50% of the day in the light and 50% of the day in the dark. So it gets the night and day. It's kind of like, almost looks like it's going at an angle, 45 degrees. And then there's these red satellites that are, they're in what they call polar orbit, which is really interesting because they're going north to south. And the reason they go north to south is as the Earth rotates underneath, obviously you get this really cool effect because the Earth is kind of rotating and then the satellite's going north to south. So it's getting a chance to kind of go over every part of Earth. And that's where they can take satellite images. That's where you see, Google satellite images and different, stuff from Planet and from Airbus, Maxar. And they're in a polar orbit, they call. And that's basically the satellites that are orbiting Earth. There's some, other stuff out there, but those are the main orbits, the main setup. And it visualized this really well. And it was a massive project to get this to work, especially for someone who is new to Blender. So like in no particular order, I had to obviously get this satellite data, which I was able to get from NASA and NORAD. It's these things called TLEs. They're basically two-line, I can't remember the terminology, two-line something. And it basically gives you a bunch of information about the satellites, but also gives you the orbit data. So yeah, 2-line elements, right? So line 1 is there's like the number, classification, launch date, and other data. And then line 2 is the orbital element. So like inclination, right of ascension, or right ascension, eccentricity, argument of perigee, mean anomaly, mean motion, and checksum. Like, okay, and the checksum is just a sort of like a confirmation of like the uniqueness of that data altogether. Now, I am still trying to wrap my head around this. I've been trying to learn it a bit better, like orbital dynamics. But, it's basically the speed it's going around Earth, which, also calculates how far it is from Earth. You've got like inclination, which is like how far it is off of like the equator. Eccentricity is like how much of it changes between like its perigee and apogee. So like how elliptical it is versus how. Sorry, anyway, I'm getting nerdy, but that's what the stream usually is. So I had to figure that all out, and then I had to figure out how to get that into Blender, which is what I use. So I had to, and luckily there was an amazing developer who had figured out this, like most of this. I had to kind of take it that final step, but he had figured out how to get that orbit data converted into Python code, and then he figured out the format for Blender cache files. So like where Blender stores a simulation, it has like a point for every, an XYZ point for every spot in the simulation. So if you were simulating like an explosion or particles or whatever, hair, doesn't matter, in Blender, you can actually kind of like cache that and save each individual point at every time. So it'd be like, this little dot is at this XYZ at this time, and it would just write it to a big Python file essentially. Or JSON file. And anyway, this guy brilliantly figured out how to write that data over top of the particle simulation. So you could almost like go and edit the simulation to essentially create the orbits. And it was super cool because I had to like figure out, okay, how to make each individual object, and then how many were there. And then I had to simulate their size. And then I had to make like objects for each one with the right emission and the right color. And then I had to run the simulation, and then I had to go get the data and then upload all the data get the data from NORAD, run it through the Python code. I mean, it was nuts. And it took me probably 6-8 months to do this. And it's a very good indicator of where I am today, because on one hand, that type of ridiculousness that I have, I guess, towards, solving a problem and just sticking to it is what allows something like this to get made. This is 21. So we're talking 2 years ago that this was basically created. And in 2 years, I can't get rid of that, which is a gift and a curse. Like, I refuse to sort of let go of something when I'm trying to figure it out and solve it, which is obviously can be a very good quality, but also can be a very negative quality. It's what allows something like this to get made, because I stuck with it, but it also is what would, have you doing this for 4 or 5 months instead of doing something else. But now from a technical standpoint, like, yeah, I think I'd be way further along in terms of understanding like the code and running it. Although I haven't spent like a ton of time dedicated to that. But the bigger one is like how I would use like a tool like Blender now to be able to do something like this. And, just to kind of look at this in any particular order, I'll just sort of point out some really interesting things. Like, first of all, as my buddy Digital Blasphemy pointed out pretty quickly, at the time it annoyed me. Well, it didn't annoy me. It's just like, oh, dude, like, do you know how much work I put in this? And this is what you focused on. The first thing is the fact that the sphere itself is set up as like a typical sphere texture. And what you get is, you'll see it when it comes around right now, is you'll get this crazy pinching at the bottom. So you can see it right there at the poles. And there's ways to fix that in Blender super easy now that I know that. There's also some kind of weirdness that goes on with the actual texture. You kind of see it pop in and out a few times on the piece. The lighting of like the night lights is really messed up to me. It just doesn't make sense why it's so purple. I don't know if that comes through on this video, but it's there in my mind. There you can see the popping. Now, the atmosphere is interesting because it has the effect of atmosphere. Like, you can see the blues from far away, and it actually looks pretty good. But when you get close, there's no actual physical atmosphere. So there's no actual like distance between the Earth and space or the light. Clouds wise, they're there, but they disappear when you go at night, which is fine. It's not a huge deal. I mean, technically, they should mask out the lights. Getting that simulation for it to rotate properly with the night day was wildly difficult. And it does actually work well. You can kind of see the clouds don't disappear at some points. It's kind of a little bit messy, but it works. And then like the actual space textures a little bit intense, but it's okay. And then the actual objects themselves are they're very blocky, and there's actually some. It's kind of weird. It's like there's motion blur calculated, but the motion blur was calculated in the animation too strongly. So what happens is you can actually see the outside. Like if you look at the inside pieces, it actually works. Like there's not really a streak, but they kind of look okay. But these ones on the outside basically look like little, like they don't make sense. Like there's not enough motion to create those lines. So anyway, there's a bunch of things I would do differently today, but that's, I think, a good testament to how far I've come and how much I've learned. Now, I have wanted to kind of revisit this for a long time. And the problem I have is, one, I do think the simulating, everything in Blender is still a really good tool. And at some point I may go back to that. We're not going to do it on this project. But simulating all the orbits and stuff is very cool in Blender. But I don't know yet whether that can happen in Unreal Engine. But what I really, really like, I can't even tell you how hard this was to render. And I guess for optimizations and all this stuff, but earth textures and, it was ridiculous. I had to buy a computer to basically get this to work. Cinematically, it just doesn't look great anymore. And I've always wanted to kind of get a much more cinematic setup for space. And I've always thought I'm probably going to have to move to Unreal Engine just because I feel like it's better equipped for cinematics and, just camera shots and composition and everything. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to start the basis of this. So this is for the project, and I have probably 5 or 6 specific types of renders that I want to do with the base of we're going to create today. And one of the challenges I'm kind of giving to myself is get this base done and then really sit down and try to make a bunch of really cool art from this without getting too complicated. So what I really need to do this is a really good representation of Earth. First of all, I think that's kind of the first step, getting a really good one that works in Unreal Engine. So that's what we're going to work on today. Potentially locking in this kind of external texture. So the stars and stuff, which is not too bad in here. Get this into Unreal Engine. Simulate a proper sun so that we can actually have a dynamic sun that we can move, and also still rotate the Earth and the moon, kind of make it all make sense, but also have it like in the scene. So like this shot never actually crosses the sun, and I had experimented with it having, the sun in there, but there is no actual sun flare or solar flare, which I think would be really cool to get in here. And then also the moon, which I'm not going to probably do today, but I would like to kind of get that relationship in there. And essentially, like as a playground canvas, what I'd love is, kind of a big sphere with all of the stars and the way far in the distance, a properly scaled Earth, a properly scaled moon, and then a sun that sort of is not in the scene, but is sort of what's generating the light. And I think I just want to do that through Unreal Engine's normal kind of lighting system. And then the last part is to say, look at like, okay, obviously I could kind of animate a camera around here in Unreal Engine, I think fairly easily using camera rails. But what I want to also look into is, could I essentially set some rails up for orbit around the Earth? So even if it's not exactly accurate at this point, could I just get a general, orbit of Earth where I could have like a camera, running around the Earth, kind of like simulating the International Space Station, etc. Because I think if I get those basic points, there's a bunch of stuff we can do, which is I can bring in objects, or I can bring in satellites, a space station model, and I can kind of do some cool compositions with the camera following that. We can bring in the model that we had previously, which we had the guy looking outside of the rocket ship, and we can actually simulate, instead of what we did last scene, which was this kind of window seat animation, which is the one that I just finished. Let me just grab the camera and I'll pilot it and I'll show you. So this was the shot, and you kind of see it set up here. We had some camera shake, we had the view at the window, and this is sort of just Earth textures on the ground. But having this, up in space now would be really cool. And we can still use this sort of assets and the the space suit and the view and the whole thing to do this. So really today is just about getting a really good quality simulation of Earth, and then the lighting and everything dialed in. And then I think we could do from that a whole bunch of different quick, either videos or still renders to get caught up, and then start to incorporate pieces. In the next probably 2 days, I have one more kind of final thing, I guess, that I have to do in Blender, and that's simulating or creating something called a tesserae, which is this sort of space-based system of modular parts that we want to kind of build and then bring into this model. And that's sort of a little bit of work, but I'll get some momentum here, and then I'll go into Blender and work on that, and then we'll be able to hopefully bring that into Unreal Engine. So I want to stick to Unreal Engine as much as I can to finish this story. And I just think there's a lot of cool stuff that we can do. And I've been looking online and trying to get as much reference as I can. And it's kind of a fun little journey. And then I'm going to quickly run the washroom, get coffee, and then we'll come back and start. But just for some kind of fun comparisons here, this is the original moonrise photo. And this is actually modeled inside of moon data that I have. So this is actually like the photo with the old, like the real terrain that they brought in. They lined everything up, which is super cool. It's like a little side project that I was thinking about doing, something from the moon looking back at Earth. So if we have that relationship, we could move the camera there and do it. And I have a really good texture maps and stuff of the moon. Going over here, this is real photos from NASA. So this is like what it looks like when the sun rises. This is the moon coming up onto Earth. Oh, that's a very weird photo, but it seems a little odd. These are like photos from the International Space Station. View outside the window. That would be the moon. This is another really cool shot. This sort of like window deal. More from the International Space Station, a satellite above Earth with sort of the red. I guess it would be the sun hitting the atmosphere here at this point. I don't think there's any aurora in this one. And then here's some stuff from like some shots from Space Odyssey, which I thought was kind of cool to kind of get some like perspective from a movie from a long time ago. Spacewalker was a little movie where they did a orbit reentry, and I thought it was kind of cool. Just kind of getting some basic ideas of how they looked. More photos from the ISS. These ones are really incredible, and obviously I think these are kind of quite a bit enhanced, but like this one's really cool with the green aurora glow, and then the lights, and then the sun, the clouds. A pure night shot, really cool with the sun up on this side, which I guess would be still not risen on this side of the Earth. I don't know. More night shots, really cool. Some kind of reflection shots that show what it looks like with water on Earth, which is an interesting thing. I want to see if I can get that right with like the Fresnel of the water and the reflection. Kind of an interesting one of just like the sun off of, I think the sun right off screen, might be the moon actually, just with some of like the hazing that you get and the bokeh on the light. And then there's another really awesome one with the sunset and the reflections off the water on the ground, which is wild. These ones are really important. I got these from the ESA, European Space Agency, and I really think these are the best references. This is from the ISS, but they're all the same position on time lapse, and it shows you a really good indication of what like certain things look like. So you kind of, first of all, you get a really good idea of the atmosphere height, in particular what happens when you go to aurora. So it's just kind of hard to see, but you see the atmosphere line here, and then you actually see the aurora coming up through the atmosphere. So I mean, it's still part of the atmosphere, but you kind of get that line, and then the aurora coming out above it. I don't know if we'll be able to do the aurora at this point, but something interesting. And then this is the moment the sun hits the atmosphere. So it kind of creates this bulge of light. This is just due to exposure, but this like crazy bulge of light that you've probably seen in shots where there's just so bright with the sun that you can barely get anything else in the scene. It just overexposes it. This is actually Venus rising. So there is the sun I think like way down here, probably down this spot. So you get like kind of it lighting up the bottom of the atmosphere here, but you actually have Venus coming up. That's about the size of it. I think that one also is Venus here. Same shot, same basic idea. Then you get the moon, and you can see how much bigger the moon is than Venus as a reference, and the brightness is about the same. But again, just to kind of get an idea, this is like pitch dark with the reflection, obviously, of the sunlight hitting the moon. How bright it is in camera is really interesting. So yeah, this was a really good reference. These are good references. This is from Gravity. I thought this was kind of cool. I mean, this is probably the most high budget movie, you know, from the edge of Earth, let's call it, orbit of Earth. I'm going to come back to this one, but you know, like just cinematically, these are really incredible. And these are shots, like this is kind of an aspiration that I want to get to, where like with a metahuman and some lighting, I think we should be able to get to that. I mean, we saw it with this shot, and obviously it's not color graded when you see the final that I posted on Twitter today. You know, with, I would say, a very low quality metahuman scan that I did. This wasn't a good one. If you actually use real metahumans, it's a way better quality, which is something I definitely want to test. That's crazy. But if you look at this, yeah, this was the one I just finished. I mean, it's pretty crazy. Cinematically, I'm pretty happy with that quality of that. And that's with, you know, a low quality metahuman. You know, I don't see any reason why we can't like aspire to this kind of level of CGI for this. I just think this is really cool, obviously. And then, you know, Clooney with, again, the reflection is something I really want to nail. Haven't quite figured out if that would be just like, if we could get, obviously it's not the real reflection of Earth, but like whether I could get the real reflection in glass of Earth if I model it, or whether that, you know, just needs to be a composite. But either way, that reflection is super cool. And that should be possible with, it's not really Fresnel, it's like a layer weight, they call it. Actually, well, I mean, this is obviously composite, so they can just see it now when I look at it. Like, there's no reason for that just suddenly show up at his eyes. So that was composited. These shots here, you know, obviously forget the space station side of this, because it's not really my super interest right now. But just the line and like this sort of Earth as sort of a CGI Earth is really interesting. It's it's not overly dramatic on the atmosphere. So if you kind of look at this as a reference, these obviously are kind of a little bit over, maybe over, I mean, these are real photos, so they're not over exaggerated, but it's just interesting, like the atmosphere of that versus that. I think it's just because a lot of these were showing the light coming up. But, you know, really, I think high quality, really good cinematics, really good color grading. And like, this is sort of the aspiration that I would like to get to, is have a replica, you know, that's this quality that I can start to work with, because then it just opens up, you know, we can get a model of the space station, you know, high quality, and set up a follow camera with orbits and all sorts of cool stuff like that. And then the night one is really cool, obviously, with the tether. So Gravity is a good example. I didn't like the movie, but I really like the cinematics. I may watch that again to try to capture some of this. This was just, this is a CGI one for a satellite company that I thought was really well done. Doesn't show through here too well, but just the way that the lighting was coming off in the atmosphere in the dark, it was one of the best CGI that I found outside of like Hollywood movies. So that's the game plan. I'm going to hit, be right back, you quick break, and then we're going to start in and we're going to start modeling out the Earth in Unreal Engine and get to work. All right, be right back. Okay, I think we're ready to rock. Try to get some sci-fi background music. This is the one I used in the video. It's super cool. Okay, so what we're gonna do is I have all this set up in a note. I have all the dimensions and heights and everything kind of ready. I don't know yet whether we end up doing this exactly to scale or whether we're going to have to adjust it, but we're just going to kind of fly through this and see what we can get. Okay, so new level. We're going to do, we don't want to do open world. We just want to do an empty level. Create this, and we'll start from basically from scratch. So let me grab my note here. I wrote down, I watched a ton of tutorials, and I kind of have a plan at least. I have all the heights, and I mean, I have everything documented here. So I should be ready to go, but we'll see how this goes and if I run into any issues. And I'll talk through some of this stuff as we go. So people are, if you're curious about space and all that stuff, we'll go through it. Okay, so I think I have everything set up. Okay, so first of all, texture-wise, I have everything. So what we're going to do is let's organize ourselves a little bit. So this is going to be, we're going to call this low Earth orbit for now. And then I'm going to create a new folder to kind of contain all this stuff together. We'll call this space assets. And then we'll start with Earth, because we might do the moon later on. Okay. What I want to just do is we'll start with, let's create a folder called for textures. Okay. So let's go grab the textures that I have. Now, there's all sorts of interesting things here, which I'm going to explore, which is, people have done composites of different images. They have, some people have used AI to upscale. I want to explore all that at some point, because ultimately it'd be really cool to have the highest quality possible of, Earth textures that we can work with. But at least for right now, I have some 8K ones, and I'm kind of curious how they'll work. One thing I do not have that I really wanted to experiment with, which maybe we'll do in like the second part of this, is a displacement map. Because Unreal Engine now has like a full nanite, like a displacement system and everything. Like it was broken for a bit. Map Earth. I'm just gonna see if I can get one quickly, and I'll just bring it into this project. Yeah, so interesting. Okay, there's some cool, let me see if I got some here. So what is this? This is SRT ramp. High quality GeoTIFF. We don't want a GeoTIFF. We want a regular TIFF. I guess PNG might do it. All right, let's try this one. I'm just going to save it in my folder. And I don't think we're going to need it right away, but I'm kind of curious. So this is a really nice elevation file. Oh, interesting. Okay, I don't want to... Let's just give me a warning about virtual textures. Okay, we'll say no for now. This is a pretty big texture, and I got to actually... At some point, I got to do a little research and understand the virtual texture idea. Low quality JPEG. Okay, we won't worry about displacement yet. Because what I'm picturing... what I'm really picturing that I'd love to have is a super high density nanite like sphere of Earth with real displacement. So whatever resolution we can find, we displace that properly and have like the actual elevation data on the planet. So mountains. I mean, from orbit you barely see it, but it just having it would be cool because that allows us to kind of drop into whatever level we can that those, the image texture will handle, and actually see a bit of elevation. And I think there's lots of interesting ways that I can do that. Yeah. Actually, I want to do one more thing quickly. I'm going to go back to that other level because I'm actually curious about this. I was looking at this before. So I actually wanted to see what happens with, this is Google Cloud Tiles. You can see they're kind of like shitty resolution right now, but I'm actually very curious what happens if we go, like how high we can go. Interesting. Very interesting. So you can get with this, you can get, all the way out to here, which is kind of interesting to have. So at some point though, what happens is the tiles get too small and you get this kind of weird banding, and then like the whole thing kind of falls apart. But it is good to know that we can, from an animation standpoint, we could always cut, like if we wanted to do something really cool, we could always cut from like that Earth level where you're just above the planet, to low Earth orbit, which I think we're going to move to the textures. Anyway, that was the experiment. I just was curious whether, how well that would do. Okay. Let's see what we can do here. So I need I need a tool set quickly, first of all. I don't know if it's default, the modeling tools. This may be from an old. Okay, I think these should be good. Okay. So we're going to go into modeling. We're going to create a sphere. Now, here's the interesting part. So, what is dynamic mesh? Okay. See if this is going to work. So I have actual data on this. I'm kind of wanted to do this whole thing to somewhat scale to see how it looks, and then we can obviously change it. So 16 subdivisions. Okay, let's see what this looks like. So they're in centimeters. So if I go to Earth, and Earth is 12,742 kilometers. So I was thinking of going just to that in centimeters. This was my original idea. So to say like, make something that's 12,000 centimeters. But what would that be in? I feel like from a scale standpoint, that might be too small. So it would be 12,742. Let me see what that would be. 12,742 centimeters and meters. It would be right. So it'd be 127 meters in scale. I do not know. It's such an easy conversion because it's just centimeters to kilometers. Or I'm going to have to go across the board to... I'm just going to turn this down a bit, my headphones. make sure the audio is still coming through, and it should be. Okay. Okay, so 12,742 kilometers. If I do that in centimeters, our scale would be what, like 100,000 or something to 1? 100,000 to 1. If I wanted to make it like 1,000 to 1, then I could do it at 100. So we would go. Okay, let's just try it like this and see how it works. So we should be able to fix this afterwards. So this radius, everything in kilometers is going to be in centimeters. So it's 100,000 to 1 setup. And I saw some things that were saying 200 subdivisions. I don't know if that's going to be right or not. Again, I thought about modeling this in Blender and bringing it in, but I was hoping to kind of do this all in Unreal Engine so I don't run into any kind of weird issues. Okay, let's try this. So what's stopping me right now from making... What's stopping me right now from making this mesh? Oh, it wants me to place it. Just kind of looking at the texture. Okay, this probably be good. Okay, so location-wise, we're going to make this dead center for now. Earth-centric system. Okay, let's just accept it and see what this does. So, first of all, let's just get a light in here so we can actually see what we're doing. Sorry, now that add directional light. And then let's just see. Okay, cool. So at least we've got something. Let's turn this down. Okay, and it creates it creates a mesh in a way that looks like it doesn't cause any issues with the won't cause any issues with pinching, right? So it's created a pretty tiny mesh, but it's subdivided it in a way that looks at least good to me, at least now. I don't know, actually. Oh, it's probably just the base texture. I assume that's just like a base texture in Unreal Engine. Okay, so we're gonna just do this. We're gonna call this static mesh earth, okay? And then while we're here, just to kind of have both, okay, give me 1 second. Okay, just so we have one, we're gonna do a duplicate. I don't see any reason why we can't. I could really come back to regret this, but I'm gonna just try it. Moon, and just to get it right, from a scale standpoint, if I run the math on this, so if the moon is 3474, I want to do calculator. So the moon is 3474 divided by 12742 is 0.27% of Earth. So we should be able to just apply that scale. Let's just grab the first 4. So I can't actually see what's going on. Okay, cool. So that should be good. Now, I'm curious on this one. I don't know if this is going to work or not, but I'm just kind of in my own curiosity. For distance wise, if I can think about this in terms of the location, let's say the Earth is, the moon is, what, how far is the moon again? The moon is 384,000 kilometers. So it would just be a matter of picking a dimension and go 384, 400, I think. Famous last words. Okay. So let's take a peek at a distance and see what happened. Okay. I think that probably makes sense. And there you go. So there you have, you know, the right scale. It's basically just under a quarter of the Earth's size, and it is exactly 384,000 centimeters away from Earth, which is the right 100,000 to 1 scale. So if you kind of look at it, you know, from here, if we were doing like an orbit, that's about the height, it's about the size it would look. Now, again, we can have some fun with lenses and camera, but I'd like to at least kind of get an idea of it being like that. So eventually I can get the orbit data and see if I can get this thing on an animation path. So it just sort of orbits around Earth. Be the idea. And there you go. Now, the one thing that will be, I'm just thinking out loud here, because the sun is casting on both. I'm just trying to picture this now. So if the moon, the moon should be the same. It's just I'm trying to think the shadowing. No, this makes sense, right? So we change our light, right? As our light goes, you know, right? As our light goes around, it'll keep the same thing, right? Moon will be like this. Okay, cool. So we have two objects. Good start. So let me go back now. And what we want to do is we've got to get those, we get that. Okay, so now for the Earth, I would like to get this accurate, and I don't know how realistic this is going to be. I'm going to just try this quickly. If I can't get it right, I'm going to, you know, I may have to adjust it, because clouds are really nothing, right? Like how high is a cloud? Kilometer? A couple kilometers? So let's just kind of test this out. So how high are clouds in kilometers? So 3 to 8 kilometers, 2 to 4 kilometers. So let's just say, as a nice example, let's say 4 kilometers off of Earth. So let's run the, so if we're in kilometers and we're in centimeters, that means a 4 centimeter offset we would want. So I'm trying to think of how to translate that to scale. So if the Earth is, my brain is probably going to collapse on this one. So if the Earth is 12,742, you know, 4 divided by 12,742, wait, sorry, 4 divided 12,742, no, it's giving me, it's I mean, it's such a small percentage. So I don't think it's going to matter. I think it's going to matter. We're just going to go to whatever the lowest we need to go to get clouds just off Earth. So basically what I'm trying to say here is, if I duplicate this, okay, and now we go SM Earth clouds, what we really have here is, like, let's just try 1.01. See how much that was? I would even go 1.01 for now to try. So it should just be slightly bigger than Earth. So if we go to wireframe mode, I don't know if we'll be able to see this. We kind of check here. Yeah, it's really tough to see. But there's 2 meshes here. You can kind of see it when you look at it. When you look at it against the moon, right? Even this navigation though is, I gotta say, is infinitely easier than what I was. Okay, so it's like there it is there, right? So there's Earth, there's clouds. See that difference? We want that to be as low as possible without clipping. So I don't know what the clipping number will be in, in Blender. It's tough, but I would say, well, let's start with 0.001. So it's a very, very small difference. And then the atmosphere one might be more interesting. So how far does the atmosphere, how much bigger is, okay, you know what? I have a ChatGPT session open on with all this data. I've been asking it like every calculation. I've asked it every distance, every height, and and orbital dynamics. I've been probably an hour just messing around. So we can get it to help us. So how big is the atmosphere that you would likely see from the ISS compared to the Earth surface? And I might actually ask it to give me the calculation, see if it can do it. It's been doing a pretty good job so far. So 408, yeah, I got that. Okay. Okay, wait a second. So that faint glow or thin blue line, how high would that be in elevation compared to the Earth's surface? Just trying to kind of get an idea of a number here. I'm sure there's data out there somewhere, but like the clouds are, okay, so say the clouds are, 4 kilometers, right? Then what is it to the, so it's saying 12 is a troposphere. Okay, so part of the stratosphere, 50 kilometers. So would you estimate the thin blue line at about 50 kilometers? Just kind of, I'm just, trying to get it, just like where would it be? Okay, so it's saying reasonable. So let's say 50. Okay, so if the Earth was a scale of 1 with actual dimensions of 742 centimeter in UE5, how much would I add in scale to the atmosphere object as a percent to simulate the 50 kilometer difference? See if it can understand what I'm trying to say. I don't even know if I understand what I'm trying to say. Oh, it's actually trying to run a... Okay, I'll go back into UE5 because, it is, again, what we're really just doing is if we take Earth again and we duplicate it, and these are all going to be easy to fix afterwards, right? So edit, duplicate, and we say SM, Earth, Atmo. Then really, like, if Earth is a 1, I don't know what I duplicated. Oh, we duplicated the moon. Duplicate. Control D. I'm so used to, okay. SM, Earth, Atmo. And like it should be somewhere, like if we did the clouds at 0.001, it should be like 0.4. Yeah, it should be 0.01 is probably my guess. 1.01. Let's say that for now. It may be a little aggressive, but now you kind of get an idea, right? If we go Earth here, and then we add the clouds, and then we add the atmosphere, That's what it looks like. It may be a little aggressive. Let's see what it comes back with. Oh, no, that's not right. Oh, no, as a, what is it called? As a scale of 1. So Earth equals 1.0. What is atmosphere? See what it comes back. I might just ask it for clouds as well. It's interesting that it's going to its actual like math model. See what it comes back with. No, there's no way. That's not right. It can't be. What is the ISS above Earth? 400 kilometers. 50? No. This doesn't seem right. Earth is 1.0. And is, 12,000, 1274, 12,742 in kilometers in diameter. If the atmosphere is an extra 50 kilometers, then it should be a tiny number above 1.0. Let's see what it comes back with. I'm just going to try this one more time. I'm going to go down the weeds on this stuff. You should be pretty easy to fix afterwards because we're just scaling it, but it can't be. It's got to be a tiny number. 1.7 would be ridiculous. It's like, it doesn't make any sense. It's doing the math in a weird way. See if it gets it this time. Like you're adding an extra 50 kilometers to the total. So it should be pretty easy. 12,000 times something equals 12,705. Yeah, it should be. You just have to solve for what percentage or what number, 1 point what gives you 12 as your diameter. Just a bit over 1. Okay, give me a number. Okay. I don't know why it's being weird. All right, so we'll come back. So I think we're fine with this. I'm going to say it just feels, just from, the way that I would picture it, it feels a little bit bigger, but I think it's going to, at least for now, it's going to work, right? And then, obviously as we, there we go. As we scroll out, you can't even see it. All right, let's go back to lit mode. All right, let's get some earth textures in here. So what do we want to do? We want to grab, we want to create our materials. So we'll start with material. We're going to create, I want to create this so I can kind of adjust afterwards. So earth material. We can open it up, and this should be pretty straightforward, except for the emission part, which I watched some tutorials on, and I wrote it down because I don't quite understand the math or the way that it works. Obviously, that most of the stuff is pretty straightforward, so I can just kind of do that, and then it's the weirdness around the emission that I'm going to follow a tutorial on and see. So let's just start with we want a day map, we want a night map, we want a normal map, and we want a specular map. And I think the beginning of these things should be really simple, right? So I think we should just be able to set the normal. We should be able to put the texture. We should be able to put the specular. And the roughness stuff, we're going to kind of figure out afterwards, because I'm kind of curious about doing some stuff with Fresnel and roughness. But at least for now, we're going to just use a constant And we'll put this in here. And we'll just set it to 1. And we might as well make it a parameter for now for testing. So but default value is 1. Okay. So that should be pretty straightforward. And actually, we can just put this onto Earth right now. We'll just sort of split our screen. Well, actually, we'll keep this up here like that. And then I'll just, yeah, I'm just going to give, I'll give the material here. Actually, let's create a material instance of it. Mi Earth. And we'll drag that on. Oops, okay, we gotta be really careful. That's not what I want to do. I want to make sure it goes on the actual Earth because that's going to be atmosphere. So Earth should be, hopefully, that. And then we'll hide atmosphere and clouds. No. And we can hide moon. I'm not really sure. I should have done something. Oh, probably because I haven't saved or compiled that yet. Sorry, I'm struggling with moving windows around. Okay, so there we go. So I'm gonna try not to be, I gotta be careful here, but I'm just gonna look at this quickly. And something is already off. Which I was kind of worried about. Just see if it's to do with the normal or not. Okay, so it's not. It's got to be something to do with the UVs of what we created. So let's, before we go further, let me go take a peek and see if I have a video of someone making those spheres, and I'm just going to double check if there was anything they did a little bit different. So give me a second. I'm just going to kill the music. Hopefully I got this right. So, okay, textures, easy. Okay, it's just with the model part. Okay, so what did they do? It's one thing about iOS is you can zoom in. When you're on your phone, you can zoom in on a YouTube video. It's really useful for people that when they put little text on here. Okay, so let's just go back to the modeling mode and see what the defaults were. So if I create a sphere, polygroup mode per face. I don't know what that is. Oh, interesting. So subdivision lat. Oh, so there is a lat long option. Okay, well, we're going to test this. 200. I'm going to see if this makes a difference or not. So that's a lat long. I don't know if that would cause an issue with the modeling, but we'll see. Target surface on scene, pivot location. They have it at centered. UV scale, they didn't change. There's really it. They really did nothing. So we're just going to see if adding this material. Well, there you go. You learn something new every day. So whatever I did, this like goes to show you, right, how freaking quickly you can get yourself in a bad. So I don't know what that would be. I guess the way that it does the lat long texture versus the box texture, you get this situation. So now, you know, you just like, your brain's like, okay, now you got to go back. And because I don't think you can change these pretty confidently. Don't think you could change these two. No, like I don't think we would be able to quickly change these. Fuck. Okay. Damn it. All right. So what we're going to do is we'll just keep these ones here for a minute. Man, this gets so frustrating. No, we got to just delete them. I just didn't want to lose all the, we'll just put little asterisks in front of them. I wanted to keep those names. Okay, we'll just drop them in. Just in case I just want to quickly copy settings. Cool, so we can hide these. So let's do that again. Modeling. Sphere. This time lat long, 200. All this stuff is the same, but we want from a radius. No, we already did it right. So radius is 12,742. Let me just double check that. I'm sure that sounds right. Yeah, okay. So cool. Drop this in. Earth at 0. Earth origin 0, accept. Okay, and then we're going to duplicate. Hopefully this doesn't matter. So this is going to be SM Earth. And now let's just do our duplicate. Control D. Clouds. Oh, sorry. Earth. Why is that weird game on right now? What time is the this is my ADHD kicking in. Time is this, Georgia, Alabama? Okay, it's not till 5. Oh no, it's on now, right? Oh, Alabama's winning. This is crazy. I'm just getting into college football. I'm Canadian, so I'm just kind of slowly getting into it, but I've been following this year. What a wild little, it feels like, reminds me of when I was following Formula One and they had that crazy season. This kind of feels like that. Like undefeated teams, a number 4 team that quarterback is injured. It gets really interesting. Okay. Earth clouds were 0.001. And then duplicate Earth atmosphere. And we did that at 1.01. And the moon we did at we did at 0.2726, and we set it at 38,444. Okay, cool. So let's put these into Celestial. I can't remember how you say that. Celestial bodies. Okay. And then this is going to be, I'm probably saying that wrong. Celestial. Honest to God, this is why I get nothing done. Okay, let's leave it. Okay, so we have our thing. So now let's do this again. Let's go, first of all, let's grab these objects. Let's match these up. That's kind of an important thing. So this is Earth. So this, we're going to call this SM. I don't really know why. I don't know. It's kind of interesting to me. I don't know why it does this. So this creates these generated objects, but then it names them different than this. Oh, these are the actors. Okay. I don't know. I'm not really sure. Oh, I see. Okay, so it's using the same. It's using the same mesh, just we resized it. So this is okay. So we call this base. We'll call this SM base. And I'm just going to put this in here for now. Hopefully it doesn't cause any issues. Okay. Let's try this again. So we're going to get rid of the clouds, the Earth, the moon, keep the Earth, drop this material instance in. Okay. Looks better. Super low quality though. Super low quality. We're going to have to look and figure that out. Okay. Let's go into our material. Okay, so we have a roughness. We have our, we can put our normal back in. I don't know if it even does anything. Looks like maybe it did something. Okay, let's get our emission stuff working and then we can focus on the texture after. So we've got the connected. Okay, this is the part that I don't understand. So I'm going to do it and then I'm going to try to understand it afterwards. So there's a sky atmosphere light direction. And this is the one I don't really understand what it is. And then there's a vertex normal WS. Don't understand what this one is either. But I know that we do this and then we connect them to a dot node. I think that's just this. Okay, and then constant -1. Multiplying like dot plus constant. Okay, so then dot, multiply. Okay, and just multiply that to that. Power node. Don't really understand this part either. Connect, multiply to base. Okay, and leave, I think, the exponent. Create and multiply. Okay, so now create another multiply. And this time connect power to B. Create, multiply, and connect power. Okay, I don't know if I got that right. Create power node. Okay, let me see if I get a picture of this, how this looked. So dot into multiply, into power, power out to another multiply. Okay, and it's another power node where the night, there we go. Okay, so let's bring this down a little bit. My God. So the RGB into this power, and then this power into the top of the multiply. I think that was it. And this should go into, I think this should go into emissive color, but let me just double check. Yeah, this should go into emissive color. So what this should do is, I think it's basically, it's looking, and again, I have to understand it, but it's basically looking at where the sky atmosphere light direction, which is something you cannot do in Blender at all, that I could figure out easy. And basically it's figuring out where the light direction is. It's running a bunch of this math, which I don't quite understand. And it's basically saying, emit that when the light is on, and don't emit it when it's not. That's basically what it's doing. Create directional light. Okay, so it hopefully should work from here. So let's try it. I don't know. We'll see. Okay, sweet. So that's a big step. So now if we take our light and we move it around, I can't even tell you how hard that was in Blender to get just that working. It's crazy. Like, I can't even tell you. I would have spent like multiple weeks trying to figure this out. I remember at one point, I think it was after I was trying to do something with like a GLB file and stuff, like simulate that, and we were on Twitter and people were trying to get Blender Guru to help me out. It was crazy. Okay, other than, the little crossover, that could be to do with exposure. Let's see what happens. Yeah, so there's some auto exposure stuff going on here, but we'll just sort of set this. It's going to always try to adjust it. We can, I'm sure, dial that in, but it's working, which is huge. Okay, so that's one big step. So now let's do the clouds. I think the really tough one is going to be if we could get, like, I know there's a map that you can get for the, like, I should look up. I have a bunch of old textures. I should see if I have a higher quality than this. But I know there's like a map that you can get of the oceans, and you can apply that to like another material to have it turn the oceans into sort of like a reflective with Fresnel. So you get kind of this, when you look at it straight, nothing happens. But when you look at it from the side, you get a reflection, which is what you want ultimately. Okay, but at least we're getting somewhere. So that's the Earth. Now we want a new material for clouds, and we might as well just duplicate this. So we'll duplicate this material, and we'll call this material Earth Clouds. And then we'll open this one up. And again, we'll create a material instance, Earth Cloud. Okay. And then we're going to get rid of the Earth, open up the Earth Clouds, and drop that in. Should look the same. But we're going to go into the Earth Cloud material now, and we're going to adjust this one. So this should be different. So we don't want, I don't think we want this. Where's our clouds actually? So this is our cloud texture is the one we want. I don't think we're going to want any of this, but let's not mess with it yet. Okay. Connect the clouds to the multiply node after dot. This is my notes I'm reading myself. Connect clouds to the multiply node after dot. Probably here. Okay, so there's the dot stays the same. So this is what does the Earth. And then we're multiply. So we actually bring, let me double check something. Did I mess something up down here? No, so this was multiply in, and then this was I don't know what this node is doing. I had to figure that out. But in the cloud one, we're bringing the clouds, which we can probably get rid of this, I think. I don't know. So we can get this into the multiply node, and the dot is going to go in here, and we'll get rid of this. Okay. And then this multiply goes into opacity, which we're going to have to change this to translucent. And then we have an opacity node. And I don't think we're going to need this or this, hopefully. Okay, this makes sense. So I don't think we would want any of this. And what we want now is a 3-vector. No, not a 3-vector. Is it just, it's called like a parameter node? Vector parameter? I think that's it. It's just color. I think this is the one. Cloud color. Okay, so basically this should just be cloud color, and it really should just be white. I don't think we'd ever want to change that, but just in case we do, we have a parameter. And I don't think we need to change any of this, but we can always add parameters, and that's the emissive color. So I think that the idea being, now I don't know about the emissive value. I don't actually know where that comes from. I'm just curious. Maybe it's like a multiply. We'll figure that out after. We want to kind of turn that down or whatever. But I think this should do it. So it's basically, again, it's checking for whether or not we have light. If we have light, clouds, no clouds. And it's feeding that into the opacity. So I think with all this math, it should just be like, it should be applying this texture sample like a mask. So where it's white, it'll be clouds, and black, it'll be no clouds. And then when it's dark, it'll have all black. So it'll just be no clouds. I think that's what's going to happen. I would like to understand this a little better, but let's see. So I don't know if that's working until we put the earth below it. So now let's go earth, and it does. Okay, so if it works right, we should have, let's just go over to North America, and it looks good. So if we hit our light, we have lights and no clouds, and then when we bring this over, man, I can't even begin to tell you how nuts that is for me, just to have that basic setup already. Like, and real-time performance is pretty amazing. I don't know if it's going to work with the ray tracing or not, but we'll figure that out after. All right, so let's go back here. Okay, I need a quick break. Oh, hey, Ian. Where did we go? Sorry, I just missed you, Ian. I'm going to read your note quickly, and then I'm going to use the washroom. Always a reminder when I look at my stream and I see chats that I forget to launch my actual chat bot that notifies me. Which now I can't see your chat. I see, hope I'm doing well. Have background, yes. Oh, sorry about your kids. That sucks. Yeah, just working away. Yeah, no problem, man. I'm just, I'm in the grind. Yeah, so actually, you probably missed it. That last project that I don't know if you've seen it yet, the little animation with the dude looking out the window over Earth, that used cesium. So cesium has done a really good job of, cesium is like the Blender OSM for UE5, if that makes sense. So Blender OSM is going out and getting real world data from different sources, connecting it to your own API keys, and then passing that into Blender, which I've been using to date. And again, really good with small areas, buildings, roads, really cool stuff. Cesium is doing the same thing for Unreal Engine. What it does differently that is really, really clever is it does some streaming. And it can be annoying, but it can also be really useful, which is like in Blender, when I was trying to download, say, all of Manhattan, it was like, you wait like 45 minutes for it to download the data, and then you have it on your hard drive. Once it's there, it's really good. But if you want to move your camera outside of Manhattan, you have to go download new data. And then you have overlap and a bunch of stuff. So Cesium has basically used Unreal Engine to just map out the Earth, and you can basically go anywhere. I was just doing it actually earlier. If you go back in this video at the beginning, I was kind of messing around with it, where you can like come all the way out of Earth, you can go all the way around Earth, and as fast as your internet connection is, it'll download the Google Earth tiles and bring them in. Now, I was just saying is that once you get to a certain distance above Earth, the way that those tiles kind of connect together, it starts getting kind of messy. It doesn't really work well, and you obviously don't have the lighting. So what I've been kind of thinking in my head is, can I potentially set up like a transition? So it's like once you're above like low Earth orbit, we're going to go to the Earth texture, and then once you punch through a certain barrier, then we would flip into Cesium and load the Earth. So that's kind of like my long-term goal here. Obviously, I'm trying to get art created. Like I have to do multiple pieces a day, and I'm not. But I made a big leap yesterday with getting Unreal Engine up and running and getting all my cinema settings and my color profiles and everything that I was trying to do all loaded and working. So now I feel like I can actually produce stuff like way faster than I was in Blender. So anyway, we're going to work through these things. But yeah, ultimately, I would like to have a workplace where I can have the combination of all this stuff all connected in together in Unreal Engine, and can really start doing some cool stuff. So I know you're interested in this too. So hopefully ask any questions and share what your progress you've made, but I'll be right back. Just going to do a quick restroom break. Okay, we're back. Okay, so major win so far. This is working really well. Again, I just can't emphasize how annoyingly difficult that was before. Now we have full light control. We can do whatever we want with this, which is sick. Everything's to scale. We've got the moon, which is going to be really easy to do. And if we find better textures, which I will probably do, we can just bring them in pretty easily, just replace them. Everything's all set up properly. Okay, so let's do the atmosphere. So for atmosphere, we'll take a copy from the clouds. So we have Earth now and clouds, and then 2 material instances. I feel like I like to keep, well, we'll see. I'll organize this after. Okay, so let's grab the cloud material, and we're going to duplicate it. I don't know what I just did. I must have hit something different. Okay, so this is M Earth. And we're going to create a material instance. Nope. MI Earth Atmo. Okay, so now we've got material instances, and this is we're going to go into now get rid of. We'll keep the atmosphere. make sure Earth is gone, clouds are gone for a second, and let's make sure that it's got the material instance on it. Okay, so it should look like clouds. This is good. And now we're going to work on just the atmosphere for a second. Actually, we can put Earth behind it and the clouds behind it. It's going to look messed up for a second, but we'll go into the material and fix it. Okay. So the multiply and the parameter. Okay, so this is fine. Create a Fresnel node and connect the power node base. Let me see what this look like. Okay, so Fresnel into the power into the multiply into the color. Okay, cool. Okay, so first of all, this is going to be Atmo color. So we're going to be able to change this to make the atmosphere whatever color we want, which should be blue, but we may want to change it in the future. Get rid of the cloud texture. For multiply, we're going to bring the color in, and then we'll get rid of this dot. And here we don't care about at all what the lighting is because it's going to be the same. And we just want a power, and we're going to bring the power into the bottom of the multiply. This one actually makes a lot of sense. I'm not really good with Unreal Engine materials yet, but it makes sense from a context of Blender. You know, Fresnel is like, it's like that phenomenon I always say, like when you look at a lake and you look down into a lake, you can see underneath it if it's clear water. But if you look at it from an angle, you see the reflection, and that's the Fresnel. I don't know scientifically what that actually is happening. I think it has to do with like the little micro displacements of the water reflecting light. I don't know, but it's a natural thing. I don't know if these numbers are going to be right, but I've used this in my previous textures when I was doing glass, and I had two constants that I was using to control. So I'm going to set those up. We're going to call this Fresnel exponent. And this was set to 5. And this is 0.04. 0.04. And I can't remember. It's actually on my list anyway to figure out how these numbers relate. But at least we have, let's call this 0 to 25 for now. And we'll call this 0.01, 0 to 1 for now. So we just can control these two from the default value if we need to. And that should be it. So basically what it's doing is it's taking whatever color we have here, it's multiplying it by a Fresnel factor, which is what makes it kind of glow on the outside, and it's emitting it. And I think that should be it. So we're going to hit save, or we'll save and apply, same thing. There it is. So now, as a default value, we probably want something that's very kind of bluish. Maybe like that. And obviously we can adjust this. But, let's pick a default value. Let's go with that. Hit save. And now if we close this and we go to our material instance, we should have control of this, and we can just kind of get a feel for how this looks. So let's go to selection and let's turn on game view so we can kind of see this, some of those views that we were doing. Let's turn on the moon, right? Because remember, we were looking at this before, and you kind of want to have a couple options, right? We want to have, what does this look like from close up? So how much atmosphere do we have? What does it look like from far away? So this is a combination of the size of this and the settings. So I would say right off the bat, this looks pretty decent on the side. So if we kind of mess around with our lighting, we imagine the Earth like this. This one is important. So let's take a peek at, do we have any good references of the Earth from this view? It's probably a pretty unlikely scenario. we have, these are kind of it. There's no glow going on here, which I don't remember with Unreal Engine if I have to do something to enable a bit of a, but there's a lot of stuff that we can do with this. But let's just kind of play with a couple settings. So this is our atmosphere color. So again, we can change this to whatever we want. Obviously, the more blue we get, the kind of darker it goes. And then from a darkness standpoint, you know, we can go all the way from here to here. Now, these ones are going to be interesting. So this is the fraction. So that's how far, right? So if you look at a Fresnel, like that is basically, you have to look at straight on. But if you go up, you get into, you know, something more reasonable. Now this fraction, interesting, does a bit of like, almost like a feather. So when it's off, there's no feather. Oh, that's interesting. It is basically like a feather. So I feel like you want to have almost a very little bit of atmosphere. So you go something like that. And then now if you hit our light, as it comes around, okay. So here's what I want to kind of look at specifically is I want to look at how much height. So if you get in here, you still have atmosphere, right? It's just, you can't see it from back here, which I don't know if that is accurate or not. I'm gonna have to kind of grab some more references. Most of the images you see, there's kind of a blur, but you don't see like a harsh blue, although this one does. This one has a bit more of a harsh blue. Look at, do we have any, you know, try to use real life images if we can. But, you know, when you get close, obviously you see there's with the northern lights, but there is atmosphere here. But again, the emission of it, it's not necessarily emitting blue. It should be kind of, it really should be like a real atmosphere. It should just be like, yeah, it should be like a volume. And then it should be able to take light from, like, yeah. So this is interesting to kind of think about, and this might be just something that we can work on. But yeah. Okay, so if I go into Earth atmosphere, and let's say we went to 0.05, now you have like that, right? And then you could adjust the Fresnel, you know, and say, okay, well, maybe we want higher, you know, like this, right? And then adjust. And now you have, but that's too much. Okay. Let's go back to our original. Maybe 1.015. Let's go to that. This feels pretty good. Just the emission is the problem, right? So, and again, you can, you know, we're getting into some interesting things. So, for example, if I go into the Earth, or no, the Earth atmosphere, I think probably the emission value, how do we set, I'm assuming it's a multiply, how to set emission value on material in UE5. Like in Blender, there's an automatic emission. There's like a basic emission value, but I think it's just a multiply node. It's interesting. Just looking at this. So, okay, in any value above 1. Interesting. Oh, into the HDR range. Okay, so that's interesting, producing a bloom effect. You can use them both lit and unlit. Unlit shading model. So we can adjust those and just see. So it's a multiply and then emission strength. Okay, so I think it's going to be default lit. Interesting. Okay. All right, so the only thing I'm going to do, I'm curious now about some of this default stuff. So what is this set to right now? This is set to default lit, which is what I think we need. I'm just kind of curious what happens if we switch it to unlit. The material quality in this stuff is really bad. So does it make any difference right now? Not really, right? Okay. There's just a lot of things that we can experiment with on this to kind of get it right. But one thing we want to do right now is we just want to add a multiply node. And we want to multiply the color. Right, this is basically what an emission is in Blender, by a constant, and then drag that in, and then set this to a parameter, and then call this, set this to a parameter, and we're going to call this atmosphere emission. And then default value should be 1, and it could be down to 0 up to like 100. So I'll show you what this will do. I don't know if it'll have a weird extra effect. But what it should have done is exposed a... Let me double check that. So, oh, right, sorry. Put that in there. And then apply. Okay. So there we go. So now if we open up our atmosphere, we have this. So if we turn it off, that's no emission. And if we go to 100, we get something like that. Where now there's no, the thing that gets kind of weird about this is the value of this. And again, we're going to, we can obviously adjust now this, right, to get kind of a bit more of a this. We can sort of adjust these three values until we figure out something that feels like it's got, like it, we want it to have some atmosphere and bloom, but we'll figure that kind of out. I think something like this might be pretty good for now. It feels like it's got that kind of, maybe a little bit. Not quite that much. Anyway, there we go. You get the idea. But this is the main thing. We have an Earth that has an atmosphere that we can, we can animate, we can control. This is that's a big step. Okay, so now I think we'll do the moon. The moon, I definitely want to do displacement on, and I have to figure that out. There's some weird settings you have to change. Oh yeah, let's do the stars. This one's kind of cool. I want to experiment with a couple things, but this is an interesting idea that I never really thought of. But basically, if we take, say, the atmosphere is fine, and we duplicate it. I'm so used to hitting Shift D in Blender to duplicate. And we call this, let's call this Galaxy. Because I have some interesting textures for this I want to experiment with. So I'm thinking about a bunch of things here, and this is sort of part of the experiment. Is like an HDRI, which is essentially in Blender is a, or sorry, an Unreal Engine is a, I think it's a, I don't remember. I honestly don't remember what it is. But there's an HDRI that you can add, and then you can, add your HDRI. So I want to test that out, see what it looks like. I don't know if it actually shows the whole thing around. But anyway, we're going to try a couple things. So for the atmosphere, for this galaxy one, we want to set it to like something crazy, like say 1,000. So this can be this massive thing. And then for this one, we want to do a new material again. But we want to change, I don't think it matters which one we use. Let's use the atmosphere again. Duplicate it. We'll call this Galaxy. Oops. Galaxy. And then again, we'll create a material instance. And then we'll change this to MI Galaxy. And then we're going to open this one up. This one, though, we'd have to change a bunch of things. So it should be translucent. I don't know. See, we can already have. We're gonna make this atmosphere better for sure. We want to make it two-sided though, because we're going to see it from the inside. And we need to create multiple and constant. Multiply to B. Okay, this is a new one. I'd like to understand this a bit better, but let's try to figure this out. Let's just delete everything. I really like to know how this is done. Okay, so it's translucent, it's two-sided. So let's create a multiply. And we're going to get the texture, which I have a space texture somewhere. Let's do this one to Earth. So we have that, and then let's go space. Should really be space, not galaxy, but whatever, we'll change it. So we have a couple textures in here, and I have my own texture that I bought a while ago for Eyes on Earth. So I want to bring that one in as well. That one is a really crazy quality one. It's like a 20K texture. I have, I think, a PNG of it. And while I'm in here, I'll just bring in I have an EXR version, which is wild. No, okay, so it doesn't want to, we're going to figure out the virtual texturing anyway. We have this one. Okay, so now we can experiment with all three of these. So we'll bring all three in. So these are basically star textures. One is apparently just stars that I downloaded. One is got the Milky Way, and one's the one that I have. So let's name these, because it's going to get. Can we rename that? I thought I could. Okay, I think we'll keep track. Okay, so we'll start with just the star version, which is this. I think this one has the Milky Way. Should be able to rename this somehow. Okay, so this is with Milky Way. There we go. Okay, my battery's dead. I think I'm probably going to lose my. Hopefully it doesn't ruin imaging. Man, Alabama beats Georgia. Things are going to get weird. College football. Okay, there we go. Okay, this is with Milky Way. This is no stars only. And this is like kind of like a fantasy one. Okay, just so we can test these. So let's go with just the stars only. We're going to multiply constant. I don't know why this number. We're going to figure this out. 0.2, and we might as well make this a parameter. Star level. Add node. Okay. Sky atmosphere light disk luminance. This is what I don't know what this one is at all. Sky atmosphere light disk luminance. I have to look at all these ones. See all those ones that were there? Sky atmosphere. I need to go and figure out what all this is because I think it's really, really going to be interesting to look at it. It's just something I don't think you could do in Blender because Blender didn't really have like a universal like lighting system. It didn't really understand, whereas Unreal Engine used Lumen, so it has it. Okay, so so the add node to A and the multiply to the B and then to emissive color. Okay, well we got stars, so that's good. And we'll bring this up here. And we're going to test some of these. So this is actually interesting because I know there's a way to change. I know there's a way we could make this a parameter. Star texture. Let's see if I can test this out and see if this works. So save that. And now we're going to put the galaxy. Okay, we're going to rename these actually. So this is going to be material space. And this is going to be material instance space. And now this is going to go on to space. So now we're going to take this one, which should be massive, and we're going to put that material on it. No, this one. Okay, I don't know. I guess the scale got messed up. Okay, so it is working. It's just the scale is going to be interesting. I don't know what the scale has to be. I mean, it's infinite. But there you go. So now you have, you know, stars in the background. I don't think it's going to matter how far this is away. Just like a certain point, it just sort of. But I think my texture is going to be way better. So let's go take a peek and see if we can. So first of all, this is the star level, which doesn't seem to do any. Oh, okay. So at 0, it's off, and all the way up to, it looks like 0.2. So what we can do is go back to material, and we'll set that to default 0, and we'll set it to 0.2 at the high end. And save it. So all that means is now you have a slider. So that's full on and that's off. I don't know why that number makes sense, but that's what it is. So here's the star texture. So we should be able to just go now and grab like, okay, so this is with the Milky Way. We should be able to just drop this in. Wow, it looks really bad. Huh. This could just be a product of how, like, 8K textures. Let's see what this 20K texture looks like. Okay. You can definitely tell the difference. So now I think if we just bring this down, yeah, there we go. So I think it's just the value. So now you have, a little bit of stars. And again, it's doing some auto exposure stuff here, right? So when it looks at, it looks at the Earth, it's adjusting to the exposure of the Earth. And then you go look out at the stars, there's nothing. And then look, it comes in, which is kind of a cool effect, to be honest. But if we wanted to lock that in, we could add obviously a post-process volume, and we could decide. But this one has some galaxy stuff in here. So the auto exposure stuff is not too bad, honestly, but it's going to get annoying. So what we'll do is we'll save that, and then we'll definitely keep this star texture for sure over the other ones. And it also gives me full belief that a really high quality texture we're going to have to figure out for this Earth planet to make this all kind of work. Okay, so I think we can safely get rid of all of these now. And we're going to call this sun. And get rid of that. So now we have, we'll put this here actually. Keep this as space. And I don't think we're going to need to name these like this, but we'll see. So now we have, our space thing, our sun, and we have these swirly clouds shouldn't have, they have a mission? I really think they also could just be, I don't think they need to have a mission. Okay, well, we'll figure that out. I just want to get it all working, and then we can obviously do our own thing. Okay, so this is our volume. This is, we're just going to put this to everything. And this will be what we can use quickly to control, our exposure. So if we wanted to turn this to manual, we now have control over what we want this to look like. So there's normal. Now we can let's bring the sun down a bit. Yeah, the problem is the cloud emission is really going to mess everything up. Let's put the sun to 1 for a second. Yeah, see, the clouds are just aggressive. But I guess they disappear over here, so it doesn't matter. And obviously we can adjust the emission of this too is another thing. So if we go now to the post-process volume is, okay, first of all, our atmosphere has disappeared, which my guess is because of, so yeah. So let's just bring that up for a second. Keep it at 50. And then, so now we have that, and now we go back to the space, and we have to bring this up. So that's why. They had probably that post-process volume set up already. So now we have, yeah, probably just bring it down to, yeah, it kind of loses. We can adjust that. It's just we're going to want to, tone down the whole craziness, but it's kind of cool. You get the galaxies and everything in here, and save that. Okay. So what do we got? We have Earth with an atmosphere. We have Earth with an atmosphere, with lighting. We can spin around it. We've got some crazy space stuff going on in the background. We don't have a sun, but we have sun control. So we can adjust where the sun is. We just don't have something showing the sun, which I'm going to have to think about how we want to do that. Because ideally we would have the sun all set up so we'd see it. So we want to add this. Let me add a quick note. I'm going to take a break here soon, and then I'll come back and do a bunch of these things. So let me get a little note here going to myself. Oh, hey, Gasser, is it? Gasser. Currently, I'm just working on this. Just wanted to get a system set up with, the Earth, the moon, the sun, some scale, background, so I could start to work on a little animation. So today, I think we're probably going to do, I haven't decided yet. It might be a still shot of, a 24-hour cycle of just the sun rotating. It may just be something kind of lower from the Earth atmosphere. So it's sort of doing like a full like ISS style, rotate. We've got the moon in. I haven't decided what the final outcome is, but today I'm doing some type of art, and the goal is I'm trying to do something every day, which is what this project is about. But longer term, there's a story I'm telling. So there's multiple pieces that are coming together. And in our current story, we're 17 of 30. So we're just over halfway through. And in this story that we're telling, we're currently at this spot right here. So we just got to space. This is the last one I did. So this is a little animation of my metahuman going to space. It's crazy how much that looks like video to me, but that's just a metahuman. Pretty crazy, right? So anyway, that's going to space, and now we're actually in space, and yeah, you can see my little thread if you want to look at how I did this one. It's all laid out here. And then bigger picture, we're working on the series, which is called CAFO. And if we open that up, this is the current series right here. If I do it in order, it goes, wish I could go the opposite, but it goes from here as the pass. So people bought a pass to all 30 pieces that I sold, and then they get them. And then I started with this little video. And then we went to this piece up here, which is a vault of seed vault in Norway using real data. And then a little animation of the seed vault with this little object. The object packaging, I did an animation of the packaging. And then an actual promo video for the product. And then a little animation of the DNA that's inside of that product. A little render of a boat my grandfather gave to me as the projector inside of the product, this soul vault thing that I have. And then a little nostalgia piece, which animates all these different old objects as projected out from this soul vault. And then a little setup for this place called The Neighborhood in Brooklyn, which is real data with Earth data that we created to make an apartment building, and then a render of the apartment building and a render of the person looking up to the telescope. Hey, Sean, how you doing? Anyway, and then a render of the moon, and then a render of the workshop, and then the workshop foreshadows the launch pad, and then we go to a place in the edge of Russia, China, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and China for the launch facility. Inside the launch facility, actual simulation of the launch, and then the actual animation. So there you go. So I won't go into like crazy detail because I'll probably go on a tangent for 20, 30 minutes. But this here is the link to the series. So I'll send it to you if you're interested. This tells the whole story from start to beginning. And the general theme is we're kind of sharing a bit of a story around saving and archiving digital data, which includes, landscapes that people have been to, objects, 3D objects, scans, like, fossils, things that are important to you, your memories, your photos, your videos, kind of like encapsulating that all into an archive for future generations. And then The story is a little bit telling about, the downfall of humanity and civilization and an exit plan for someone to get off of the planet. And it all kind of ties into a bigger picture that I'm working on and a story that I'm telling. But yeah, the stream is me kind of working through it. Everything I do uses real world data. So each piece has some type of real world data. I got to organize this, but including like lunar data, maps, Gaussian splats, and neuroradiance fields, which is NERFs, OpenStreetMap building data, roads, terrain, simulations. I mean, it's just tons of stuff. I have to organize this list, but I always use real world data. And then most of this stuff was done in Blender, and now we're in Unreal Engine. So I use a bunch of tools as we go. So there's our planet, though. I'm pretty pumped about this. I feel like just as a starting point, we're a long way. So let's do the moon together quickly before I leave, and then I'm going to take a break, go for a run before it gets dark, take the dog out, and then I'll be back for a bunch of, probably I'll do 2 or 3 more streams tonight as I work on this. I just want this to be my background on my computer, where I have this and I have like a keyboard shortcut in Unreal Engine running, and I can just like change the location of the sun. Oh, it would also be really fun for us to, at some point, get this connected to real world data. So I'd love to be able to have this thing automatically rotating based on where the actual sun is now. So, it's, I'm in Kelowna, British Columbia, and I think the sun sets in about a half an hour. So my guess is that we're probably something like, wait a second, which way would it be? This way, right? Should be coming this way. Sunset. My brain is never. Well, okay. This is static, and the Earth is actually rotating, which is the kind of the funny part. So I have to put this all together on a connected, and I have to be able to rotate it. That's another interesting side note, because if I rotate this is the Earth, but the clouds don't go. So that's another piece, is to rotate. Okay, let me not do that. Anyway, got to wrap my head around that. The sun shouldn't move. It'll be the Earth rotating as we go. But anyway, we should be something like this right now, right? Like it should be dark. Would it be dark in Chicago right now? Tell me where you guys are in the world and whether it's dark. Just stick the camera to the sun. What do you mean? Stick the camera. Oh. Stick the camera to the sun. What do you actually mean by that? That sounds really interesting to me. And I'm like, oh, what do you... Stick the camera to the sun. Yeah, there definitely is. I have cesium installed, and I know you can do that with cesium. I just have to think about the setup, but I want to do this slowly because I want to have like this fail-proof that I know I can do some because right now I could do some cool videos with this without doing much else. I'm always curious what happens when I turn on path tracing. And now we're in your world, Sean. So now you got to help me out. You're Unreal guy, and I don't know if Ian is working on Unreal Engine. Oh, path tracing works. Other than there's something going on here with the clouds. That's cool. I love path tracing. If you don't know, path tracing is oh, your focus? Is that what you're saying? Okay, that's good to know. We'll figure that out after. Okay, I want to do the moon quickly, and then I'm going to go for a run. So let's find our moon. Well, we can go to the moon. And then, hey, look at this is going to happen. I can't wait for this. I'm so pumped to do moonrise. Oh, I see what you're saying. Got it. Yeah, I got to think about that, Gasser. Tell me if I'm saying that right. Because like I obviously know we can do that. We can map the sun to the, I know what you're saying now, map the sun and the camera so you can move them both and then you get the fake rotation. But I actually would like to not do that. So what I'd like to be able to do is I'd actually like to now set the rotation of, like, animate the rotation of the Earth, to be like accurate, like let it actually rotate, and then actually set up the, like I'd like to actually, it would be fun to have this thing actually running. So I can move the camera around, but like actual sun position is right. Actual Earth is rotating. Actual moon is rotating around the Earth. And it would be really cool to set it up as a real time, because then I could go into sequencer and I could just accelerate it and stuff and do some cool animations. But I got to think about how realistic that is. Like right now, this is the right scale and the right distance from Earth. So the cool thing is when we set up the textures and everything, this whole moonrise thing is going to probably be pretty easy for me to simulate and actually have really high quality textures of the moon. So let's do that real quick. So this one should be really easy. I'm just going to grab this material. I'm going to duplicate it. Material moon. I'm going to go into textures. I'm going to create a new folder. I'll call this one moon. What do you mean a folder already exists? A folder. Okay. Hold on a second. Oh, I have really, I'll show you where to get them. They're actually, here, I'll show you right now. It's from, it's called, what is the link? Hold on, I have a link to it in here. Let me see if I can find it. There's a special, NASA did this really cool thing where they went and got a ton of images from the one that's going around, the lunar reconnaissance mission. It's just like, it's orbiting the moon. And they got really crazy textures, like 10,000 images, and they put it all together and they created it. It's awesome. Really, really, really high quality. I'm just trying to remember why I don't have these written down properly. Let me get it. Does anyone else use Notion? Oh man, I love Notion, but I really get lost a lot. I think this one's it. No, it's this thing. It's Scientific Visual Studio though. SVS Moon Textures. This is it right here. This will change your life. Add a panner node in the Earth texture before each PNG. Oh, I see. Okay. And control the speed. Oh, I see. So you add a panner node to so you're rotating the texture, not the actual Earth. But what would be what's the upside of that? What's the upside of rotating the texture over the actual object? Because to me, it's like just like the physics of it, just like, okay, we have, like what I would actually do is I would have the Earth rotating at regular Earth speed, and then I'd rotate the clouds according to whatever the normal cloud movement is. Just have them rotating, and eventually could have some cool stuff like transitioning between different clouds. And then the atmosphere I would just keep static. That's what I would do. I don't know. Help educate me if I'm missing something. But yeah, I guess the thing is then you don't have to actually animate within UE5, so you wouldn't have to have a real animation. But I feel like the texture animation would cause issues when I start to do some like if I wanted to actually have like the ISS going around the Earth every 90 minutes, and then I want to render that out at 10 times speed. Yeah, it's a cool idea though. I definitely know what you're saying. Sorry, I'm getting distracted. So for both you guys, but for Sean, this is the really crazy. Like this is insane quality displacement map, insane quality images. So I have to go, and if anyone knows this, I have to figure out there's a way to turn on displacement. So like the moon has got to be nanite. I want to have like a crazy, crazy high quality moon that I can actually land on. That's what I really want. Right now it's just going to look, it can look pretty simple, but I want a freaking nanite moon. And by the way, like I've seen like a really lack of tutorials on this stuff, which like Unreal Engine is so set up well to handle this. So if I maybe have to do a YouTube tutorial on this after. Okay, let's do the moon. So new folder, moon, move this in. They all use the same texture, and that's an issue. I have to come back to that. I copied the actual static mesh, and I realize now that I don't want to do that because I want the moon to probably be like, I think the Earth is going to be almost like if you think of a video game, once we pop through the Earth atmosphere, it's going to go to a different level. And that level is going to load, I think, and then you would have like a, cesium full Earth deal. I mean, you could do some weird world partition stuff, but I don't really know how world partition works when it comes to like height as opposed to like a map. So I don't actually know whether. I don't know if that would work. But the moon, because, we're not, I just want to be able to land on the moon. Okay, so let's do this like this for now, but I'm going to have to change the base texture because right now it's a scaled down version of Earth. Okay, so let's create a material instance. Let's call this moon. Oh yeah, like I think. See, the Earth is just going to be a really low, like it's just going to be a displacement map, super low. Because if you look at like Mount Everest on Earth from like the ISS, it's not going to protrude that much. So I don't want to have to like cut through the atmosphere and drop down to Earth. I think the scale will get all messed up. I don't think it's going to work. Like we were talking, I just don't. I have to think about it. I think it's going to be a separate thing. But the moon, I think we could do this with. So let's put this on for a second, and let's just go mess around with. And we can get this up and running really quickly because I have the textures. I don't know about the displacement. Okay, so I have assets, NASA. Textures, NASA, moon. I actually downloaded stuff for Mars as well, but I'll do that after. Okay, so I have. This is where Unreal Engine's going to get mad at me. So let's start with an 8K. Let's start with an 8K moon texture. Let's see what happens if I import the mother one, the big one. Do either of you guys know about virtual texture mapping? Because I always get this message and then it's talking about like virtual texturing and I'm like, oh, I have no idea what to do with that. But for now, I think this should work. Yeah, okay, that worked. So that's the displacement map, but we're gonna mess with that yet. So this one should be really simple. We just get rid of this, drop this in, hit apply. We have a moon. Now we don't want the specular. We can leave the roughness. We don't want the normal. But if we could turn the displacement map into a normal map, at least it would be cool. And so what we want here is we want to get rid of this and change this to a what is it called? Parameter. What is the regular color called? Vector parameter. So we don't want the lights, obviously, until we have a moon base one day. And that should just turn off the lights. There we go. So really, we could potentially... There's a better way to do this, actually. I don't even know if we need this, to be honest. Let me just see if... I don't think we want this. Because I think what we want is we want there to be a texture here. There's just no light. So I think... Well... Let me try that. Let me try an idea. I wonder if I just drag this in. And drag this in. And hit apply. Now it's going to light up. But what if I could just turn the amount like way down? No. I don't think this is going to work. Yeah, there's still a little bit there. But the idea is going to make sense. I think it's just the lighting situation. Moon. How do you convert... Okay, that doesn't work. Okay, I got to do some research unless someone knows. How do I convert a displacement map to a normal map? In UE5, or I got to turn on displacement. Yeah, but like, what does it actually do? Like, if I just turned it on, it kept saying to me, "Hey, you don't have it on." If I just turned it on and brought in like a 32K texture, is it going to just work, or is there something I have to enable? Like, I know what you're talking about, the virtual texturing for like blending stuff in, but I don't actually quite understand how it all works. I'm gonna watch a YouTube on it tonight. Okay, but anyway, we've got a moon. We just don't have any. It's just the image, and I have like a crazy high quality image, which would look way better than this, and I have the displacement map. But, you know, got something. You know, at least we have a... I don't know what it is. For some reason, even at this level, it gives me a feeling of scale. Yeah, I'm going to have to look at that after and see. But man, I don't even with that weird, I'm going to rotate that, but even with the galaxy chilling over there and all that stuff, I don't know, just some reason it gives me a bit of a sense of scale of how far that is. Super cool. Okay. We got a moon. So let's go back to my list and see what else I have to do. Okay, we did the reference images. We did the Earth. We got the sun. Okay, so a couple things to do when we get back. So number one is experiment with sky texture or sky textures, sky spheres, I think they're called. What are these lighting things called? What is that? Like a skybox. What is a skybox in does anyone know what how do you add an HDRI or a skybox or whatever you call it? Okay, so I'll do that with HDRI skybox. Try to get sun visible in scene. So I want to actually have the sun visible in the scene. Enable nanite and displacement on moon. So I can show my note here on this one. Oh, Alabama is winning this game. Sun visible scene. Experiment with virtual textures. Explain to me what's going on here when it gives me a spell check and I pick the option and it doesn't actually change it. This has been a weird Notion thing for a while. Experiment with virtual textures. Okay, so I want to do a couple more things. I want to simulate, create an orbital camera rig. Animate rotation of Earth. See, what's really crazy about Unreal that you have to wrap your head around is like in Blender, if you want to animate something, you just animate it. But you don't play with Blender, doesn't run. Like you don't model while something's animating. But in Unreal Engine, I think that like obviously add everything to a sequencer and then you could just run an animation. But I don't think you would have like the Earth rotating, right? While you're just messing around in the viewport. You would have to hit simulate, I think. I'm pretty sure that's true. You can't just have something animating while you're doing it. It'd be very cool if you could. Obviously, you can simulate it and then, yeah, so you could set it up, hit sim, go to like normal camera controls where you're just like flying around as the sim and then let it just animate at real time. That would be the best. Or you can say like, let's go to like 10 times mode and everything would go. Sun would go or Earth would rotate. We wouldn't need to worry about like animating around the sun and all that stuff. We could just basically have the Earth spinning, Earth-centric world. Earth spinning, moon rotating around Earth, objects rotating around, satellites rotating around Earth, sun static. Does that make sense? Oh yeah, the construction script. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Could do that. Yeah, I don't think so, right? I don't think we need it to happen in the editor. I think we need to have a mode where you just hit play. And when you hit play, it would be cool as if you hit play and it just went and got the exact time of day and it just simulated from where you were. And then you had some controls, right? You could just have like speed controls, time of day. Like that would be really cool. Just by itself. Like just a really simple Earth, moon, International Space Station, orbit stuff going around. Okay, should we try that thing? I do have it. Can we try it, Gasser? Before I go? So one of the things I have to do is I duplicated the... so actually, if you have a second, it can help me. So the moon is using the same static mesh base, but I really want to use a different one. Yeah, I would want to actually have this stuff moving. That's the way I would want to do it. I would just want to have the Earth spinning, Earth-centric model. Sun out there simulated because they have, you know, the simulated sun. So the sun's, now I have to think about this now because now my brain's going to break, because I would want the sun. No, because the sun could stay static, right? So the sun stays in one spot. Obviously, the Earth is going around the sun, but we don't need to do that at this point. Probably would need to figure it out, though, to get the actual right sun positions and stuff. But the idea would just be the sun would be static in the scene in one location, and then it would, the sun would be, you know, obviously set up like this, and then the Earth would rotate, and then the moon would go around the Earth. That would be perfect. Okay. Yeah, so that's what I want to do. So let's try this quickly together. So it's using this static mesh base. I have no idea about U mapping, or I don't even know what that is. U mapping? UV mapping, you mean? I don't want to use modeling tools in as much as I can. Like, I can obviously go bring this in and do it in Blender and convert it, but I would like to try to do this thing. So yeah, so I'm in modeling. What I have is this base, which is here, but I can duplicate it. Or is it better just to create a new mesh? Yeah, I have no idea. So let's just try this SM moon. And we'll change the moon to this. So it's the exact same as before. It's just scaled down slightly. That was the only thing. And I don't know about like applying scale and stuff in UV or in Unreal. So I want to add a displacement map to this. Is there something I can do easily? Subdivide. Remeshes. Voxels. So we do voxels and blow it up. There's UVs. I don't want to get it. I don't really want to get into any of this because I'm way more comfortable in Blender. Let me know, Gasser, if you have any ideas, because I can turn it on for the. I know there's a way to turn it on for texturing, so it'll look good. But if I wanted to bring a camera down to it, yeah, I mean I can definitely do that. But just then it gets into weirdness around UVs and retexturing, and I don't really want to go there. Is there a quick way to add a displacement in the modeling tools just so I can see what it does? If you don't know, if you're not sure, I'll come back and do it later. Okay, so where do we do it? Displace, is that it? Texture 2D. I'm just gonna start clicking buttons. There's my displacement. It's probably mapped to the red. Something happened. It's not accurate, but something happened. Okay, it is on the red channel. It's reversed-ish, maybe. I probably should have saved this first. Something's not right. Okay, I'm gonna have to. I think I'm gonna have to go. I take my dog out. She's coughing at something. Okay, how do I reverse that? How do I reverse what I did? Because I added displacement, but I didn't really want to do it. Yeah, I shouldn't do this. I don't know what I'm doing. I need to go do some research before I start applying random stuff. And I mean, yeah, I can 100%. I have a moon asset, for God's sakes, in Blender. I can import that in 2 seconds. And then just set up the textures. And it has all the displacement already done. All right, I don't know how to get rid of the deform that I did. Okay, I'm going to, I'm just going to change this back to the base. And save it. Okay, guys, I'm taking a break, so I kill the stream. I'll be back probably in an hour and a half, but I appreciate everyone for joining. Yeah, we'll try some stuff with the moon after. Also want to just focus on getting an image out the door for tonight, and then I can have a little bit more time to play. So thanks for joining, and I'll be back in probably 90 minutes. See ya.